Here we are. Hello and welcome to our Green Vision Summit Expo lives that we do in the run-up to the event, which is around the corner now. And I'm delighted to speak to our opening keynote speaker, Marc Buckley. Or as you see here, Marc Earth Buckley. Thank you so much for being here, Marc. It's an honor and privilege that you come to join us to set the stage there. And I'm happy to speak with you beforehand, just to give the audience a bit of introduction, and then I want to give you the words to do more. Marc and I met 4 years ago at a conference in the midst of COVID in Copenhagen. There was this tiny window of opportunities where we were allowed to travel in summer 2020. We did a La Futura there. So I met Marc there and figured that we have a lot of things in common, but Marc always went a step further. So for instance, I'm reading books of Fritjof Capra, and he didn't read them. He was his mentor. I did a permaculture design course with Geoff Lawton online because of COVID. Well, Marc didn't do this online thing. He went to Australia before that. So we have a lot of things in common. I'd say here he is an ecological economist, a regenerative futurist, and a solar punk, Marc Buckley. Hello.
Hello, Kathleen. It's so good to see you. I really appreciate it. It's wonderful to be here, and thanks for that introduction. Yeah, we've known each other for a while. Matter of fact, we were just talking about a book that you have some copies that we're going to get at Malta. Yeah, we did the book together, and there's a bunch of things, from La Futura, Trend One, and many other things that we've seen over the years. But it's so good to see you again, and I'll be seeing you live finally after all these years of travel, India, and you're all over the place.
Yeah, we're both traveling a lot, but sometimes, or a lot of times, it's needed because we need voices out there who stand for change, for making a change. And that's what Green Vision is for me about, that we not just talk, but we make the change and help people to take action. Your keynote will be about the regeneration over sustainability. And I think that is also very inherent to system thinking and to permaculture design approaches, that we are like, sustainability is not enough. So can you give us a bit of like, how did you get into all this big realm of regeneration?
Sure, not a problem. So sustainability doesn't have regeneration in it, but regeneration has sustainability in it. So the sustainability and sustainable development is a nice infrastructure. It's a solid base to then build upon resilience and regeneration and kind of springboard off onto much deeper ways of evolution, of development into the future. And so I'm not saying anything wrong about sustainability, but as you know from our world, it's a big buzzword, and some people still don't understand what it is. It's not a perfect solution. It's not also something that has an end point in mind. You never reach sustainability. It's something that you're always on that journey to. But what that does is builds a nice infrastructure that can be developed off onto resilience and then onto regeneration. And so I'm an ecological economist. I studied with Herman Daly at the University of Maryland. He was the father of ecological economics, and he left the World Bank as an economist to kind of saying, I'm not for capitalism and I'm not for our current economic systems. And he left in an open letter in the New York Times and the Harvard Business Review and many others, where he kind of said, we need to change our economic systems, and we need to have something that's more ecological, more that works the way the world works and doesn't leave anybody behind. And so, and also not this continual growth. And so that was one big mentor. And then my second big mentor, he was my professor actually, but my second big mentor was William McDonough, or Bill McDonough, who's the father of the circular economy. he actually started circular economy and also cradle to cradle and upcycling the books, and also the concept of these biological cycles and these technical cycles and how things in our world work, and that everything that we create kind of goes in the cyclical system that comes back. And then I was one of the first 50 people trained by Al Gore and his ranch in Carthage, Tennessee. And all know Al Gore as the climate leader and speaker, and also movement with the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and around the world for environmentalism. And I'm in both of his movies, The Inconvenient Truth and the sequel to The Inconvenient Truth. And so those are fabulous mentors, but I come from 6 generations of Germany's largest organic farmers and Europe's 3rd largest organic farmers. And so in my family, I spent a lot of time doing agriculture and learning about agriculture and learning about organic agriculture, what they call as biodynamic organics, which is the old Rudolf Steiner method of biodynamic organic farming and practices. And today it's what they call the Demeter standard around the world for agriculture. And I studied with Jeff Lawton, Bill Mollison in Tasmania and Australia, right there with them. I know
when Bill Mollison was still with us.
Yeah. And I actually have the original permaculture design book that they give out, and on the cover of that book, uniquely, it says sustainability right on the cover. It says, that's what we're trying to achieve.
I actually have the German version.
Yeah, that's nice. I have that version on my bookshelf too. It's so cool. I mean, it's amazing. But the original copy, so that's the newer version. Yeah. The original copy actually had the word sustainability right on the cover, which is unbelievable. And then, I have a podcast I do. It's called Inside Ideas, where I've spoken to hundreds of authors and leading experts in the regeneration movement who are doing regenerative agriculture, regenerative medicine, regenerative innovations, regenerative economics, things like that. And so I've been just fortunate to have my fingers in this area for a long time. But I want to make sure that people know that regeneration, it's not a new thing. It's been around 3.8 billion years. It's how life started on this earth. And we tend to think now that it's a buzzword, it's something trendy, it's a meme. Well, it's not. It's been around for a long time. And that's the core principle of regeneration, is to regenerate and be around a long time, instead of having a cradle to grave mentality where you have these models that are hierarchy or just kind of one way. Regeneration is something that's continually going around.
When you think of this, so I would assume that you're saying, okay, when we want to change one thing, the first thing that should be is the narrative around it. But this is my assumption. What do you think is this one thing that you could change tomorrow without any consequences? What would it be and why?
Well, that's extremely hard, but I get asked that all the time. So there is no silver bullet. There is not just one thing. And that's why, as you said before, I studied systems science with Fritz Capra and took the Capra courses, and he's written a chapter in my book and things. But it's the systems view of life. It's the systemic approach to life, that life is complex systems, and they're all functioning at the same time. There's no way to say, okay, today I'm just going to breathe, or that you have 11 systems in your body, the nervous system, the skeletal system, the digestive. Oh, today I'm only going to just focus on the bones. We're only going to do the skeletal system. Well, life doesn't work that way. All the facets need to operate gooey in harmony at the same time. That's how life regenerates itself. And when you get sick or break a bone or something goes wrong, then those other 10 systems of your body compensate. And that's how it is throughout all life. You have to actually, most of those systems you can run autonomously. You don't even have to think about them. but they all need to function at the same time in that complexity so that things flow smoothly, so that life goes on, so that you're abundantly flourishing into the future. And so a key aspect of what you asked is really regeneration means to create the conditions that are conducive for life to thrive and flourish amid ever-changing life conditions. And what that really means is that you really always need to regenerate and create those conditions for things to go on forever, not in a hierarchy way where it goes only one way and it's only for some people, that it goes for everyone and all the systems to continue to regenerate well into the future. And that's what we'll talk about at the Green Vision Summit in Expo. How can we be future fit? How can we understand sustainability, regeneration, and how it's not complex, it's not hard, how we can integrate that into our business models and into our lives to have this abundance, thriving and flourishing futures to truly be future fit.
Yeah, that implies already my next question is really like, what intrigues you? Why are you coming to Green Vision to Malta?
Well, I've been to Malta several times. I've done different innovation and blockchain events and things there. It's a beautiful location. It's this island in and of itself. So it's its own ecosystem that really is unique. Not only has certain tax benefits, but it's also a very kind of deserty Mediterranean island. And it's unique in and of itself. And now we're bringing all these people together around sustainability, around the green vision, around ESG, around the environment, and talking about how, I mean, some of the speakers as well, Vandana Shiva, oh my gosh, Benedict Bösel, oh my gosh, you know, fabulous people. If you don't know who they are, Vandana Shiva's a super author, been in several documentaries, and one of my visionaries I look up to, Benedict Bösel, has an Apple, or not Apple, Disney Plus, Disney Plus or Disney series on Disney about regenerative agriculture and kind of silviculture and as well as the Savory method, you know, Alan Savory's holistic land management. And so there's going to be fabulous people talking about sustainability. And you're thinking, okay, sustainability is tied into this regeneration that keeps coming up with Marc, but it's also, I'm hearing this underlying tone that it has to do with food. And most people don't realize that all of the sustainable development goals are tied to seafood, agriculture, food, and beverages. They're tied to food. And why is that? Well, it's a no-brainer. It's a basic and human need for everybody on Earth. We all need to eat, hopefully 3 times a day if we're doing well. And it's the greatest cause of human suffering and greenhouse gas emissions and problems in our world. It's not the fossil fuel industry. Nobody's drinking or eating fossil fuels, but it's the food industry that's driving the fossil fuel industry and driving chemicals and pesticides and fertilizers and bad practices. And it's also creating health problems in human beings as people who don't have any food that has that. And so food is the biggest silver bullet or drawdown lever to draw down our emissions and improve our world and how we develop by how we do food. And so that's why that really ties in closely with nature and regeneration and sustainability. And so we're going to connect those dots so that people can see how that works. In the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, where I do a lot of things, if I were to ask people, say, what are the top 10 things, or what are the top 4 things you can do, the biggest drawdown levers to draw down human suffering and our global grand challenges? Most people don't know, first of all. Secondly, they would say, oh, renewable energy or getting off of fossil fuels.
I would. You want
they're
to
much
hear
lower.
mine?
Yeah, please let me hear yours.
Well, for me, it's kind of obvious because you touched on it, and for me, it's since years. It's food. I'm not eating meat. Although after I watched the documentary with Benedict, I was like, maybe I would eat those buffaloes that he has. Because this is when you look into the research, is the one CO2 emission out there, it is our mass meat production, isn't it? It's so. Are you eating meat?
I rarely eat meat, but I do eat meat. Yes, I usually eat meat about once a month, or very rarely. It's mainly plant-based, and I'm very particular about the type of meat I eat. I eat meat that is holistically grown, or that is organic, or that I know. I would say probably it's been a while since I have. So it's not that frequent, but I'm also don't want people to get hung up on that.
Yeah, sorry. I always tell people, if we would go back to this Sunday roast, we would have less problems. But what do people say at the UN?
Honestly, so at the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, if you were to ask people what are the top things, it's not going vegan. It's not getting off of meat. It's the first one is globally reforming our entire food system. The second one is empowering women. The third is empowering girls. And the fourth is rethinking refrigeration. And let me just help you understand some of those. The fossil fuel industry or renewable energies, they're on the top 10, but they're 8, 9, and 10 on the list. They're lower on the list. The top ones are food and empowering women and girls, because women and girls are the majority of food workers, food servers, farmers in our world, and they're undereducated. They're not paid a fair wage. They're not landowners. They don't have the rights and benefits, but yet they're producing food for their families and their children and for us. And if they're not treated fairly, if they don't have equality, if they do not have the basic needs met, then they're also not going to feed the rest of the world well. Most farmers in the world, smallhold farmers, are the largest majority of the world's farmers. And a lot of them are in poverty. A lot of them are underpaid and not given a fair wage and suffering. And that's creating a huge ripple effect around the world. And the number one thing is that I mentioned, Global Food Systems Reformation. And why I mention that is most people don't understand that the majority of all of our food that's grown, from wheat to barley to fruits and vegetables, bananas, are traded as a commodity. And when food is in the commodities market, that's like a gamble. That's like investing on the stock market. And so we're trading and investing in food, which is a basic resource for human beings. And when we do that, it cheapens food, which in turn cheapens life. When you cheapen food, you cheapen life. And the other thing is, those people who are trading in those investments and want the prices low and to get the best deals, they've never produced food. They've never had to grow food with water and sunlight, or know how to plant and harvest and all the work and transportation, labor and packaging and all the things that go into that. All they care about is, are they going to be able to make money off it? And are they going to be able to trade that in a cheap way? And so when they do that, then the farmers and the people producing that suffering, but also the quality of that food suffers drastically, because there's no minerals, nutritional value in there. It is also hurting our soils, and it's affecting the entire food chain, because now we're using more chemicals, pesticides, fertilizers, aromas, flavoring, sugars, which then comes back to a huge healthcare system problem and has this huge ripple effect. Now, getting off of meat and that's a very tiny facet in the food system. And don't feel bad, because when I talk to people around the world, especially activists or people who are environmentalists, they seem to think that that's the biggest lever that they need to change, is by changing how they eat. It's more changing how they produce and how they purchase what they produce that will change the system, and also reducing food waste. It's not really the meat industry. On the list of that top 10, food is on that list of meat is on that list of the top 10, but it's more around 6 or 7 on the list of that has a big impact. But if it's done right, animal agriculture can actually restore a lot of land. It can also restore and regenerate a lot of land, and it can do a lot of good for our world as well if it's done right.
As you said, Benedikt Böse will be part of our conference on the second day. He will give the introduction to the food and water track that we have. And for people who didn't watch the documentary yet, there is one part that says it's the how, not the cow. And when you see that that these animals can help you, and there are so many other documentaries on different streaming platforms, like the smallest big farm or the biggest small farm, where they have so many animals, they're just treating the land. And I think Benedikt says it's they are walking compost piles, these cows. And when you look into how it works, it actually totally makes sense. Now, when you mentioned already Vandana, I mean, one of the biggest advocates for women in agriculture and their rights. So I'm happy. I go next week to India, and I will go to her farm. Not just to go to her farm. I also have to go there. But let's go into so you're meeting so many people around the world. You just came back from South by Southwest. How many talks did you have there? 14, you said?
Quite a few. Yeah, quite a few.
Quite a few. Always a bit different shift I'm pretty sure it's all around regeneration. But when you go there, and now let's talk about when you go to Malta, what do you think? What help what do you need from other contributors at the conference?
Really just an open mind, come and listen. Don't get me wrong. I want to inspire you and motivate you. I'm not Tony Robbins. I'm not some motivational speaker. But the things that we will talk about, I promise you, there is such a few amount of people who have heard some of these wisdoms and some of these things that you're going to get something out of it. You're going to have a sustainable takeaway, and it's going to be motivating. It's going to touch you in a much different way so that you see the world in a different way, one that you might not have seen before. I attend, the European Union. I sit on the PSF Commission for the ESG taxonomy group. It's a core people on the commission. I sit on the UN. I wrote the Sustainable Development Goal Manifesto for the United Nations. I sit on about 17 other panels. I was the futurist who guided the next iteration after the Sustainable Development Goals. Most people don't even know that there's going to be goals after the Sustainable Development Goals. Well, there were goals before, and there's going to be goals afterwards. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Until you ask them that question, they're like, oh, there is? And what are they? Well, I was the futurist that started that program, and I still guide it until it's launched in December 2030. And we'll talk about that, thinking into the future, thinking what the roadmap and the plans that are happening on international levels are going, and how we can align our models and our missions for our futures to be future fit. So if we're an entrepreneur, if we're a business, if we're in government and we're trying to plan the future of our constituents in the country that we're in, or the city that we're in, or in the cities and communities that we're in, how can we make sure we're future fit so that we're not working on past policies and regulations, which will always be behind the time, but that we're future fit, thinking of where do we want to go? What our futures want to look like? And there's one big question that really ties into that. And it's one that we've been asking for over 70 years around the world. And it's this question: what does a world that works for everyone look like for you? And I'll tell you, most people don't know the answer to that question. But if you do, and you have an idea of where that's going, it is a profound shift in your life and in the world. If we know where we're actually going, why we're here on this earth, what the whole purpose of all the stuff that we're doing here is, and how we want to live. And we'll talk about some of those things, which will be really interesting. And they all have to do with sustainability, regeneration, resilience, making sure that our lives and our businesses and organizations are future fit to really thrive and flourish amid ever-changing life conditions, no matter what.
I think it's a very important word here, future fit. We talked beforehand, and the last time you said, what does a future look like for you that works for everyone? I actually really asked ChatGPT, and I looked also at some other talks that I could find that you already gave years ago. It's interesting that it always also includes well-being. And we have this track at the conference where we also talk about hope and humanity and about well-being. And you also said it, food is connected to our health, and we always say, or neuroscientists actually also confirmed, disease of the brain are disease of the body, and disease of the body are disease of the brain. So it's all connected. But I'm questioning, you're saying you're at a lot of panels, you speak with so many people, and you're also the futurist for the next, would that be then the SDGs or the next?
So right now we're in the Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, until December 2030, and it's the Paris Agreement or the Agenda 2030, and that ends December 2030. And there's tons of confusion even there. A lot of people think 2050 is involved in that. No, that's the new Green Deal. That's net zero that people talk about. And it's not an official agreement around the world.
So many terminologies.
Yeah, there's so many acronyms. So there's corporate social responsibility, CSR, then there's SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, then there's ESG, environmental social governance, and dozens of others. There's the CSRD, Corporate Sustainable Reporting Directive, and Digital Product Passport. I mean, just DPP, we can go on. And the UN is famous for all these acronyms. We need to quit playing catch up or running behind, trying to understand policies and regulations and what the acronyms mean. We need to put our model and our why and understanding of where we want to be in the future and get that solidified, that we will always be future fit. No matter what acronyms or policies or regulations come out, we will always be above and future fit, ahead of the game of where we want to go. And let me tell you why. So just quickly, I told you I belong to the ESG taxonomy for the European Union. Well, that came out July 12, 2021. Actually, we wanted to bring it out in 2020, but because of the pandemic and the Ukraine war, Brexit and things, we kind of were slow and hesitant. We're not ready because of the world was going through some shocks. And then we rolled it out. But that commission and the working on that policy and those regulations took a lot of years. So by the time any kind of policy, it doesn't matter the European Union or not, gets rolled out in the world, it's already 5 to 7 years outdated. So then we're complaining and we're playing catch up to a policy that's already outdated. Well, what I want you to do is not only be future fit, but no matter what policy comes out, you're going to be way ahead of the game because you're up here, not this policy that comes out. We need living policies, living regulation that keeps pace with humanity and the evolution of our world, not only human beings, but the evolution and development of our world. It's always evolving and growing exponentially. And we need living policies and regulations that are always future fit to whatever will come, that give us responsibility, resilience, and regeneration, so that no matter what happens around the world, we will have enough food, water, we'll have enough safety and security to really be future fit and thrive and flourish in the future. And that's kind of some of the tools and also models and understanding I will give you, so that you will be prepared for those futures and you'll understand a little bit more how the world works. Going back to that question I asked, what does a world that works for everyone look like for you? I've had people start to break down and cry because they're 50 years old and they don't know the answer, and they don't know what it is for them, let alone for anyone else. And that's kind of sad, because that's really something we should know, because it has to do with how do we want to live and how do we want to be in the future. And if you don't know, I guarantee you somebody else has jumped into that position in your life, a president, a priest, your mother, your father, some city or government leader, and they're guiding us or you on the future that they think works for everybody. And there's no government or organization in the world, in my opinion, today, where I say, wow, they're going to lead us in this beautiful, bright, super future, and I'm fully on board. I'll put all my whole life into their hands, and they're guiding me in the right future. That's why there's people like me, like Vandana Shiva and Benedict Bösel, that say, I looked around the world to see if there's a city or government or persons guiding us on this beautiful future, and there just wasn't any. So we either found the ones that are coming close, or we've started to create and talk about those futures so that we can help people get us to that next evolution, that next paradigm shift into a new consciousness for the future, to have us be future fit. And those are some of the real things. And we're going to drill down to some real specifics that you can put into your business model, your organization model, that are proven through huge volumes of work that are spread around. I just look over some of the books that I could show you that really talk about those, because I'm a real bookworm and a nerd when it comes to that. But there's been, you don't have to take my word about it. There's thousands of other experts have done extensive research on what's proven to work and how the world really works. And it's a better model. It's a better model for the world that will outperform any capitalistic extractive model, any traditional hierarchy business model that you've ever seen. And it's really powerful wisdom.
See, that is a perfect, I would leave it like that. It's perfect ending to our short conversation and a bit of a intro to what we will hear from you on Malta. And I guess I don't have to ask you who you're looking forward to the most. I think it's Vandana and Benedict, which is also like the three of you are my favorites, but I am not allowed to have a favorite, obviously. No, there's so much that connects there. And it's fantastic to have you as thought leader there with the other thought leaders, and we can take action, and we will go in workshops and we look into how can we implement these models that you are talking about. And that's why I'm really happy that you will join us on the 30th of April until the 2nd of May, where Marc, you will open the stage for us and to give an insight in for all the other listeners. He will be also on a panel, and I will drag him into the workshop where we work also with kids to look into their futures and their ideas that we hopefully can implement. With that, thank you so much, Marc.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a good time. I would encourage everybody to come out to the opening session. It will really set the stage, not only for the other speakers, but to just prepare you kind of with the right mindset of where we're going to go in the future. One last thing to say is, we didn't leave the Stone Age because we ran out of stones. We left the Stone Age because there's much better ways to live and be in this world, much more innovative way. And never before in human history have we ever transformed from one age or epoch to another without innovation, with the pneumatic tire, the steam engine, the printing press. And so there's a lot of wisdoms in how we innovate and be future fit.
Thank you so much. We talk more about transformations, not just the digital transformation. So the other 5, we will talk about them and discuss further how to implement it in Malta on the 30th of April until the 2nd of May. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.